everybody's focus is sleep, really needs to be on how we can breathe the best.
The snoring fixable?
Yes, oldest daughter had every sleep issue under the sun. Like, it didn't matter. All the tricks, nothing worked.
Is that a real thing? Like, women need more sleep than men?
No, I think it's really about like the quality of how you feel when you're awake.
What is the bedwetting about?
We do have bedwetting in adults.
I can't believe that we're already on episode 14 of the Kicking It with Keener podcast. In today's episode, we are blessed to learn from Karese. She is a myofunctional therapist, which I didn't even know what that was until I got done speaking with her, and a sleep expert. Karese just released her latest book called Accomplished that focuses on how to sleep better, eliminate burnout, and execute on your goals. So without further ado, we'll let Karese take the floor and coach us up on everything there is to know about sleep and living an optimal lifestyle. I appreciate you guys for tuning into the podcast. Enjoy the episode. Peace.
Karese, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And we tried to do this yesterday, but I was having some internet issues, but it kind of worked out because it gave me time to look over your book and your PDF and kind of skim through. And I read like the first little bit of the first chapter where you kind of talk about your entering motherhood and all those things. But I want to ask, because I'm actually curious about, one day when I have enough life experiences to write a book myself, how was that process going through that?
It was interesting. I think I wrote as I felt motivated instead of writing in a linear model. And I think that's what really worked for me. And that's the tip I always try to tell others. If you're interested in writing, you write as you feel inspired, and you could always mix and move the pieces around later. But yeah, that process was very interesting, being so reflective and kind of open and, going back into those experiences.
Yeah. And when you're writing a book, in my head, like writing a book sounds kind of like you said, but also the process sounds like it's so long. And how are you able to like remember all those life experiences and bring them back and find the way to put it into words? Like, I'm always so fascinated about how people can do that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when you're reflecting back on moments in time in your life, there are periods that stand out like very purposefully, and in a way they may have been traumatic or impactful for your life. And so there are things that you will never forget and you'll always be able to put on paper. But then there are some things that come to you, and sometimes it's unintentional. So you might be experiencing something, like I experienced some things through working with clients that reflect back on me. Oh my gosh, this feels familiar. And suddenly now I'm remembering something from before. Yeah. So I think that there is the natural impact of memories, but then there's also those things that happen that will imprint on you, like, oh, we've been here, we've been down this road.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. So I understand. And we'll get more into the book, and you can help bring us and see what it's all about. But I want to start with, as much as I love doing these podcasts virtually, I much rather sit down and talk to somebody one-on-one in person. I can look at them, I can feel the energy that they're giving off, and it's just a better vibe. So if you know anybody that would be interested or that would be a good guest for the podcast show, please get us in contact, put us together, or just relay them my information. I would love to sit down and talk to them. And with that, I will continue to do my best to improve my podcasting skills and my interviewing skills to one day bring on bigger guests that you would love to see me collab with. You are a certified oral myofunctional practitioner. Even the word goes over my head.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit what that is? Because I actually, without doing my research, don't know what that is off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, no worries. Myofunctional therapy is like the best way to just shorten that up. But I as a myofunctional therapist, I like to compare it, the easiest comparison is comparing it to personal training. So I'm like a personal trainer, but for all the muscles below the eyes, but above the shoulders. So I work in this beautiful range here with over 100 muscles to help strengthen and coordinate them because there's a lot of dysfunction that can go off and wrong in that area that will cause, oral facial pain or, shift in teeth and braces and all sorts of sequelae of events like mouth breathing, snoring, poor digestion, and so forth. But we'll get into a lot of that later.
Yeah. Wow. So I like how you said that. You're a physical trainer for below the eyes and above the chin or above the shoulders?
Shoulders,
The
above the
shoulders.
shoulders.
So
Yeah.
all of this area right here, which is weird because I I do physical training. I'm not like freaking in the gym, but I never once ever thought about working out or exercising like my face or my chin or my teeth muscles. How did you learn about that and get into that?
Yeah, it all happened through my kids. And I love that you say that, like you work out the rest of your body. I always say that to people. Like people think about muscles and body development from the shoulders down. But when we think about it, it's all these muscles that are supporting some very vital things, like our upper airway, our respiratory tract. All of that is supported by soft tissue and muscles that are
Hmm.
here, and they're very vital. So I got into it through my kids. My first career in licensure was as a dental hygienist. And working as a dental hygienist and a young mom, there's a lot of things that were going on in my home that I didn't know were not normal. They were very common, but I didn't know that they were not normal. So it wasn't something that I was talking about. But I was working for a pediatric dentist who put all the pieces together for me. And essentially, just to kind of break it down a little more, my son, who is my oldest and my only boy, I have four kids, so we're going to go through four stories. But my son, who is the oldest and my only boy, he has a lot of behavioral and like emotional issues. Poor regulation and self control and lack of focus, very typical ADHD signs. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But my oldest daughter had every sleep issue under the sun. Like you name it, she was struggling. She was
Hmm.
tossing and turning, falling out of the bed, bedwetting every single night for 10 years. It didn't matter what we did. Like you can't drink 3 hours before bed. Like it didn't matter. All the tricks, nothing worked. Snoring, sleepwalking, everything. She had
Wow.
it all as far as sleep. Yeah. And we went to the pediatrician. We tried to talk to the pediatrician about it. Pediatrician's like, don't worry, she'll grow out of it. She won't be 15 and still doing this. And that, in retrospect, seems kind of ridiculous. Like, we're just going to sit around and wait until she's 15 and then hopefully it stops. But I'll keep going. The youngest two daughters that I had, we had some issues with breastfeeding and we had issues with their upper respiratory tract as far as like they were chronically congested or had ear infection, throat infection. Like it was a mess. And we were always at the
Hmm.
pediatrician for those two on like rounds and rounds of antibiotics. But despite how
Oh
different
man.
all these things sound, so whether it's the upper respiratory congestion or the sleep issues or my son with his ADHD, it was a pediatric dentist that kind of put together everything for me, that the way they were breathing, the way they were using all these muscles, or in some cases, not using some of these muscles, was really what was creating that impact on them. And that's just how it was manifesting. In my son, it was manifesting as ADHD. And my daughter, it was manifesting in poor sleep. And my younger two, it was manifesting in just that chronic congestion and that inability to really come off of any sort of infection that they did have going on, whether it's the throat or the ears or whatever. And so I really dove in intentionally to help my family. But why I still do it now, why I'm like such an advocate for it now, is because I got to meet my kids for what I always say is the very first time on the other side of all of these issues. So while it seems very common, nobody's thinking about these muscles, and they're so important. And I'm lucky and I feel blessed that I got to help my children and intervene while they were young, because all that happens is if you don't intervene, they turn into dysfunctional adults who can't sleep, who are chronically congested, who struggle with digestive issues or anxiety or depression. We don't want any of that. And so I dived in so that I could help more people kind of overcome naturally.
Yeah. Wow. That's very well said. And that's awesome too. Cause of course, I don't have any kids myself, but I can only imagine if I had a kid that had some issues, that would definitely provoke me to find out ways to help them. And, I would be the same. I would probably nerd out all day long trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. So when it comes to the sleep, because I guess my wife, she has terrible snoring issues. It's like kind of a problem. I always joke around. It's like whenever we like live together, we're gonna have separate rooms because I can't sleep because it's really that bad. So maybe she should practice some of her mouth muscles or oral strengthening stuff. Is the snoring fixable without getting like surgery or anything?
Yes, sometimes. I'm going to put a little asterisk around that. We do help a lot of people with snoring, because let me tell you what we do. So, because I'm working on all of the muscles, right? A lot of our upper respiratory tract is soft tissue and muscle. So, I want you to imagine, and this is going to seem like a stretch, but don't worry, it's coming back around. I want you to
Okay.
imagine a person, they could be male or female, with six-pack abs. They're on a beach, okay? They're on a beach. They've got their beach towel. They put their beach towel down. They're going to lie down. Those abs, as they're standing up, perfect. As they lie down, now we've got an added pressure of gravity. Okay. So that pressure of gravity is going to impart on their body. Those abs still probably look great lying down too, right? We don't envision them changing. In our minds, still look really great. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
want you to take a person, be it male or female, and just imagine someone with a beer belly now. They're on the beach. They've got their beach towel. They stretch it out. They're going to lie down. Now we've got this same impartation of gravity on their body. Now they lie down. Does that beer belly sit up in that same way? No. We all know it shifts. Like it shifts,
Mm-hmm.
it changes. And it in that same manner, when we think about sleep, a lot of sleep and the sounds that we're hearing when it comes to snoring and things like that in the sleep, it's really the sound of air meeting resistance as it's trying to go through the upper airway. Because what happens is the first stage of sleep is muscle relaxation. And then the second thing is that as we are now horizontal, that extra gravity that's now pushed down on our body is changing everything. So now we've got gravity and these muscles that are already probably very lax because nobody's ever working on them, right? Now they're more likely to be more narrow and closed, which is now going to create that anatomical feature that is going to make it more likely that now you're going to struggle to get that air through, and you're going to hear the sound of that air trying to get through the upper respiratory tract. So when we do myofunctional therapy, we work on all of these muscles and we start to engage them so that you can get what you can visualize as like a six-pack airway. You're just strengthening these muscles and getting them more engaged so they're less likely to collapse when they're hitting gravity, kind of like that person on the beach.
Wow. That is very interesting. So maybe tonight I'll have her sleep standing up.
You might notice that maybe she doesn't snore the same way though. Like if you guys are in a car together and she's sitting upright instead of like reclined back. If you're sitting upright, more often than not, you don't have the same impact of snoring.
That is very true. Now that you mention that, because every time we travel, she definitely goes right to sleep while I do all the heavy lifting and navigate through traffic. But she does not snore in the car, and that's because the seat, obviously it's inclined. Wow, that's
Yeah.
very interesting. I'm sure your kids now, maybe as they're getting a little bit older, they're probably so grateful for you using them as like not experiments, but like to practice and help them on. Do they like thank you every day for that, or do they just continue their normal lives as if this is just normal?
Of course, they continue their normal lives because they're kids. But, I think in the future, it'll come back around. That's the way it always is, right? Like, it takes you getting to a certain age and like stage in your life to really understand whatever sacrifices or whatever your parents really did for you. So it'll come later.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And for yourself personally, do you practice malfunctional therapy on yourself at all? Or do you like continue to, I guess, yeah, do you do it on yourself?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I do. Because I'm working with clients every day and because I'm always like demonstrating. So it's essentially a program of exercises and activities that help to strengthen and engage those muscles. And because I'm teaching those for hours every day, I, in a way, am doing the exercises for myself too. So yeah, I get to practice every day.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Have you experienced somebody that's like is like so bad off and they have no hope, or they're looking to, I know a lot of people, it's like they jump to medication, surgery, doctor visits. Have you experienced somebody that like they were on that path and then they came into your practice and it just completely 360 changed them around?
So yeah, we've had a lot of wonderful transformations. I will say that there are some people who we can help get just a little better, but we can't completely like resolve all of their issues. So
Hmm.
a lot of times myofunctional therapy is really, really good for those who have obstructive sleep apnea. And one of the biggest signs of obstructive sleep apnea is snoring. But if you have a severe case of obstructive sleep apnea, myofunctional therapy doesn't really help to get you down to like a mild case. It can help it
Hmm.
be just a little bit better. You can tolerate your treatments a little bit better, be that an oral appliance or a CPAP machine, but we don't really help in a great way with that because the muscles just, it's been too much atrophy at that time. Like we just don't have the same impact. So if we get to you earlier on, it's much better. But I will say we do have wonderful transformative cases. I love the cases that I get to work on where we have people who are in severe oral facial pain, or so they have the TMJ pain and they're struggling and they might need help with, how do we manage that every day? I had one who had lockjaw once a week, every single week, would wake up with lockjaw. And the person that I was working with was a physical therapist. And even though she did all of her physical therapy things, all of the manual therapy, like it was the real work that we had to do on the dysfunction that was coordinating with those other muscles that surround the temporomandibular joint and do have an impact on that area that really made the difference in being able to resolve that to the point where there is no pain, there is no clicking and popping of the joint, and she's able to live a life of relief. So I really love being able to help in those cases. I wouldn't say there's anybody who's hopeless. I would just say there are degrees to which we would be as impactful.
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of people, at least from my experience, are starting to transition into these more holistic, I think the word is holistic methods of just conquering some of these issues that they're having, whether it be snoring, sleep, diet, even dieting. Like I think a lot of people are kind of waking up to the pharmaceutical stuff and finding other ways to battle against these. And I know just from my experience, like just getting like not related to sleep or snoring, but like sunlight in the morning and, non-sugary diets. I think people are really starting to look for these other methods of that. So I'm naturally just curiously interested now. Is there a like an age to where if you obviously if you start early, you'll have a better impact and better results. But say if they're in their late 50s, is it too late for them to practice myofunctional? Okay, so I know not everybody has the time to sit down and watch or listen to a 2 hour long podcast. That's why I've created the Kicking It with Keener podcast newsletter. After every episode, you will get a summarized, shortened version of the guest's biography, a little bit of background about the guest, and some of the key talking points that we mentioned in the podcast. This will help save you time so you don't have to sit and listen and watch the whole podcast if you don't want to, as well as if you're not sure who I'm speaking to or what we're talking about, and you might not be interested, sign up to the newsletter, look at the email, and maybe through that you might find it interesting and then come back and watch and listen to the full episode.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, just as you said, if you're younger, you get results faster. With kids, if you're 15, you're going to get results faster than somebody who's 50. But if you're 5, I'm going to see the results even faster than if you're 15. It's just as you get older, it takes more to unwind all of those bad habits and postural things that have been in place for 50 plus years. And so it takes longer, but it's not impossible. We'll just be working, probably 9 to 12 months, as opposed to if I was working with a child or someone younger in age, like a 20-year-old, might be 6 or 7 months.
Yeah. Okay. And I don't want to just keep firing off these questions, but I'm seriously, they're just coming to my head now. Is it like I know you said 6 to 9 months. After that time, are they good to go? Or is it like kind of like a lifetime of practice that they have to continue doing this?
I love this question. Okay, so when we're talking about myofunctional therapy, it always starts off with like exercises. It's a 3-phase program, and this will answer your question. Okay, I would just allow me to get to it, but
Of course, take your
it
time.
always starts out with just basic exercises. Exercises are going to be the foundation upon which we're going to eliminate some of the asymmetries, any underdeveloped muscles, any overdeveloped muscles that are overactive. Like, we're going to balance all of that out. So it starts out as like single exercises working on just independent muscle groups. Then we're going to start elevating those skills into complex activities that are going to reteach how those muscles should interact during certain activities or tasks, I should say, right? So it's going to now be a little bit more complex because now we're going to unwind any compensations or any sort of recruitment, that inappropriate muscle recruitment that was happening during certain tasks. Then we're going to start integrating it in the last phase into habituation, which I think is the most important, because people start feeling really good once we get through those activities in the second phase. But if you don't finish the third phase, you don't get these as lifelong skills. So in the third phase, we start integrating it into daily life. That way it's looking more like the simple things that you would be doing every day, the breathing, the eating, the drinking, the whatever that you're doing. And we're now integrating a conscious awareness of what's going on, because now we've undone some of those patterns. Now we've kind of created an equilibrium of the muscles. And so when we round out with phase 3, we really wind up with a lot of retention, because now on a more cognitive or neuromuscular level, we've changed how those muscles interact during your daily life. And so what happens is that you really don't need your myofunctional therapist at the end. That's the goal. I don't want you to need your myofunctional therapist in any capacity after this. You should never need myofunctional therapy again. You should have the tools, the skills, and the capability to maintain for a lifetime because of that last phase, that habituation. So every day you're still kind of working on it, because now you've got new patterns, and that's your daily practice. You're just going to keep eating, drinking, breathing, speaking every day.
Wow. Awesome. Can you, without obviously I don't want to get into much of your practice without, like a free training, but what is an example of an exercise or a workout that you do with your mouth? 'Cause I know they have those I've seen on TikTok or Snapchat, they have this jaw strengthening ball. You got, ar. Is that kind of, in my head, that's what I'm envisioning.
Yeah. I really don't like the Jawzrsizer. I think it's a
Okay.
great example. I think it's a wonderful example. So the Jawzrsizer is a great way to work out like a very limited set of muscles. And so doing that repetitively over and over and over, I think you can overdevelop the muscles very easily. With
Mm,
myofunctional therapy, we do things that are very similar in that first stage where we would work on a certain set of muscles or a certain muscle group as per the deficiency. So not everybody is deficient in their masseters or their buccinators or their temporalis, where the Jawzrsizer would really work and develop those. They might be deficient in other muscles. And so we're really working on isolating those various groups. So whether it's lip exercises or cheek exercises, tongue exercises, or we could really do a lot of soft palate and the pharynx. So if you have a phone, and I think it might be interesting for anybody else to do, but if you have a phone, just put the flashlight on for your phone. And then what I want you to do is you're going to open your mouth and I want you to see if you can visualize your uvula. The uvula is the dangly ball in the back of the throat. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. If you don't, that's okay. We're going to give ourselves a good ah. And when you say ah, you'll see it lift up. Okay. So give yourself a good ah.
Ah,
There you go. You'll see it lift up and then relax it down. And we would repeat that, right? So for those who are unable to see that uvula, we'd be working on that soft palate, which would, in some cases, for some people with snoring and so forth, it would, be hanging down in the middle of that pharyngeal space and it would not leave as much room as we want for breathing. So what we want is to strengthen and engage that little curtain of muscle that's holding on to that uvula, lifting it up and keeping that engaged. That way we can keep a more open airway. So simple exercises kind of like that.
wow. Yeah, that's that is awesome. You are on top of it too. That is crazy. Is in my head, obviously, I'm thinking like personal issues, snoring, sleep. What are some of like the common things that people come to your practice for if it's not sleep or snoring?
Yeah, if it's not sleep or snoring, it might be morning headaches. They might be clenching or grinding either during the day or at night. They might have acid reflux. A lot of air that they're swallowing sometimes is contributing to that. So when you're mouth breathing and you're eating and drinking, you're using up what you would usually breathe with to now eat and drink. And so now you're combining air and respiration with your ability to eat and drink, which is creating more airflow into your stomach and your digestive area. Now, some of that starts bubbling up that acid and so acid reflux. We see some people who have anxiety. First thing that most psychiatrists or psychologists do when you go to them and you're officially diagnosed with anxiety is they give you breathing exercises. You learn breathing techniques.
Mm.
So I think we've always known as societal, information that anxiety and breathing are very closely related. And so we work with all of the muscles around this wonderful upper respiratory tract, helping people optimize their breathing. Yeah, frequent congestion. I mean, there's so many things people come and see us for: tongue ties, whether they're in braces, tongue thrust, so many different things because you don't realize the impact of this area. And I think a lot of people need to start just being aware that health in many ways is top down. And so when we're thinking about health and we're thinking about the food and the things that we put into this area to then get digested downwards and how that impacts our body, we should also think about the function because how we breathe and how we use these muscles, or if we're not using some of these muscles, does impact health from the top down too.
Wow. Very well said. And that is interesting. Like you just said, people don't, even myself, like we don't think about this, I guess, this area and how important it is to our just daily lives and our daily health.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Dang. So is that, because when I was looking into a little bit about the background, I was like, wow, she's very knowledgeable about the sleep aspect. And as maybe probably a lot of people are in the same category as me. I tell my wife this all the time, is because she's like, oh, you go to bed kind of late and you wake up early. And my excuse is I like being awake more than I like being asleep. Like being awake is more fun than being asleep. But I'm learning so much about how important sleep is for everything, your brain and your memory, and like rebuilding some of those missing parts in your brain during the REM sleep cycle. Are you kind of knowledgeable in like sleep, just sleep general?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I agree with you. It is a very important thing. I think what some of us need to do is eliminate some of the outdated information about where the sleep normal lies. So 7 to 9 hours is something that was developed and thought of, what all of our research on sleep is very, very new. Like the 80s, the 70s, that's where sleep really became like its own entity of research. But
Mm,
when we're talking about like the 50s to 60s, that's kind of when this whole 7 to 9 hours of sleep as normal for adults kind of came about. And while it might be something that's common for a good portion of the population, there are lots of people who are able to get restorative sleep in less time. So maybe you're sleeping for not as much time, you might be sleeping for 5 to 6 hours. But if you're able to be up and you are active during the day and you don't feel that daytime fatigue, you don't feel like you're lagging, you're not using caffeine to help you like get through the rest of the day, then you might be just fine in your shorter duration of sleep. So I think it's really about like the quality of how you feel when you're awake and the quality of the sleep that you got that's going to impact how you feel when you're awake. That is more important than like the hours and the duration. So instead of the quantity of sleep, the
mm.
quality is so much more important.
Wow. Okay. Cause yeah, just for example, last night I probably went to sleep around 1 o'clock and I woke up at I usually wake up around 6. I try to keep, as I'm learning more about sleep, one of the things that a lot of people are saying is to build like sleep pattern, try to go to bed at around the same time. If not, the least thing you can do is wake up at the same time, regardless of how much sleep you got. And doing this podcast obviously kind of gave me the energy this morning because I was so excited and I look forward to this. So I'm ready to go. But I did not get a lot. I did not get the 8 hours of sleep that you're supposed to get. And
Right.
as of right now, I feel great.
Good. Good. That's what really matters. It's not about, oh, I slept for 8 hours and so I should feel great. It's how do you really feel? Because there are some people who get sleep studies and they could be in bed and they're sleeping for what they think is 8 or 9 hours, but they wake up feeling terrible. Well, most of that time they weren't in REM. Most of that time their
Mm,
body was shifting and trying to find a wonderful homeostatic position, or their body was fighting for them instead of restoring. So when we're talking about like things like snoring or even the grinding and the tossing and turning, the body is really just trying to create a nice, safe space because the body's main goal is to keep you alive. So if we're snoring and we can't get adequate oxygen in, then we've got to move the body so that we can get to a good space where we can get some oxygen in. And that's going to impact your ability to stay in or to even achieve adequate REM. And so you could be asleep for 8 hours and really not have gotten much sleep at all because none of it really hit that restorative phase. Whereas somebody who may have slept, like you said, from 1 to 6 in the morning, that's 5 hours. If most of that was really good and you cycled through your sleep stages and you spent like 30% of that time in REM, you're good. You're fully
mm,
restored. And so I think the quality really needs to be the emphasis. I think that's the most important part is how do you feel?
mm. Yeah, no, that that totally makes sense because speaking out of experience, my dad, ex-military, he did, I think it was like 24 years in the military. And I can only imagine that, going overseas, like sleeping is not good. Yeah, I remember him telling me stories where he was having to stand guard on like a post and he'd be the guy fall asleep standing up. This man he might be narcoleptic, but in his defense, his sleep at the nighttime is really bad, like to where he stays up super late and he gets up really early, but he does take naps throughout the day when he can. And I always tell
Okay.
him like, hey dad, like you're getting older, man. You need to start getting more sleep and focusing on your sleep. But he's active during the day and he keeps moving. So maybe he's just getting really good quality sleep at the time that he is doing it.
Yeah. And I think that that's what matters is that you're asking those questions, right? So, how do you feel? Do you wake up in the morning? Do you feel good? Are you waking up reluctantly? Are you waking up and feeling like, oh, I should stay in bed? I feel like I need more sleep. Or are you waking up like, feel great, ready to, start the day? If he's saying he feels great, that's wonderful. That's ideal. That's what you want out
Mhm.
of your sleep. You want it to feel like you were fully restored and that you're ready to start your next day.
Yeah. And then on the other spectrum of it, my wife, she will sleep 10 hours in a night and wake up tired. Like, I'm like, girl, you just slept 10, 11 hours. How are you tired? But like you mentioned, now that I'm learning and it's all starting to make sense a little bit, she must not be getting the right sleep because her body is trying to protect itself by snoring. She's probably moving around so she can get those airways to open up a little bit more. Is there, I know there is studies, but I was just curious what your opinion on, is there a difference of sleep between male and female? Because she was trying to tell me like, oh, girls need more sleep, trying to not like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like not in defense, because I'm always on her butt about it, but
Yeah.
is that a real thing? Like women need more sleep than men?
No, not necessarily. There are things between men and women as far as like their likelihood to have certain types of things, right? So, a very different type of sleep apnea, it's upper airway resistance syndrome, is more common to happen to women who are thin, who are fit, who don't look like they would fit a sleep apnea profile. Like men are more likely to perhaps have sleep apnea. They have larger necks. They might be larger in circumference. They might have more fat deposits around the upper airway and around the neck. And so that might be more impactful on their ability to, get good sleep. And so between men and women, there are different ways. Like some sleep things may manifest, but it doesn't mean that anybody needs more sleep than anybody
Mm.
else.
Gotcha. Yeah, because we're both humans, but at the same time, you literally just broke it down to where it makes so much sense. And I like the way you describe it because you're like making it tangible and understanding. You can, I guess, because of your background, you started working with kids that you kind of are explaining it in like a fourth grade level to where me and everybody listening, like at least I can understand and it's making sense.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we all kind of understand sleep and understand it in a way that is very basic because there's so many things that people have out there about sleep. You need this right pillow or you need this right mattress or you need this right whatever, whatever, whatever. But we need to just get back to bare bones basics. Like you need to be able to breathe adequately. And if you
Mm.
cannot breathe adequately, I don't care what pillow you have. I don't care what sleep position you are in. I don't care how long you put away your phone and turned off the TV before bed. Like none of that is going to help. You've got to be able to breathe properly. And so if we just break it down to like bare bones, breathing equals the quality of sleep. Not breathing well, not going to sleep well. Breathing well, going to sleep well.
Gotcha. Yeah, because even when we both were starting to like try to get more knowledgeable on our general health, but the sleep one really uh kind of hit home because again, I never emphasized sleep. I was always late to bed, early to rise kind of guy. But when we started to learn more about it, we kind of went down this rabbit hole of like, all right, we need to optimize our bedroom for sleep. We need to get the electronics out. We need to get the TV out of here. We need to get we have like an air doctor, it's called. It's like a
Oh,
machine
cool.
that purifies the air while we're sleeping. So we did all these things. And it's like, I guess, is that does that play a role, or is it really just the foundation, like sleep positioning and your breathing?
The breathing is like your number one thing.
Mhm.
If you're struggling like with that snoring, if she never resolves the snoring, you guys could do all the things in the world and she still will probably wake up feeling tired. So if that is like bare bones, like that's the one thing you need to prioritize above any and everything. And sometimes it really doesn't have to be as, as big as like, okay, well, now we need to see a myofunctional therapist. You could find that maybe that'll be a route for some. They just want to go straight to working one on one with a professional. But let's say she's looking for an option, or someone listening is looking for an option that's not going to work one on one with a specialist. Well, you could just start working on nasal hygiene. Nasal hygiene is such an underutilized tool. So
Hmm.
whether that's a saline spray or irrigation, people think about when you say irrigation, the neti pots, where you take the pot and you're pouring the saline solution in one nostril, out the other. You just need to clean out that nasal passage. Breathing through the nose is incredibly important for us to be able to optimize our upper respiratory space at night. A lot of times you'll find that people sleep with their mouth open. So some people use mouth tape as a way to keep the mouth closed. They'll use nasal hygiene to open up the nasal passages. You could use strips, nasal strips that would go over the nose, like the Breathe Right strips, or you can use a nasal dilator like the mute nasal dilators and the nasal cones to open up the nose. Just making sure that you're taking all of those steps to help you get to a good point where you can breathe really well at night. It makes a lot of the difference. Sometimes it's that little step that you take of being proactive and cleaning or opening up the nose or closing the mouth that can help. If you find that some of that isn't working for you or it's not working to the extent that you would like it to, maybe it's then time to start seeking out like more professional help.
Wow. Yeah, because just hearing you say that, even for me, I've never, like, I guess when I was a kid, maybe, but I don't clean out my nasal, or, I mean, if I have a runny nose and I blow my nose and everything, but I never like go out of my way to clean out my nose. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's really important. We clean so many other areas of our body, but like our nose is the only thing that is keeping us from like more respiratory issues. So our nose filters, it warms and it humidifies any of the air that's coming in. So it's helping us to get optimal oxygen. It's helping us to really make sure that the air that we're breathing and that's reaching our lungs is of really the best quality. We don't have any of those mechanisms of action. There's no way to humidify. In fact, your air would be drier if it's coming through your mouth.
Mm.
There's no way to filter when the air is coming through your mouth. So, like, mouth breathing is really just not adequate for a number of reasons. So, being able to clean that nose and keep it as running as smoothly as possible is your best bet as a breathing technique.
Wow. Dude, this is awesome and super valuable information and knowledgeable. So I'm already very appreciative for you. What is your just curious, what is your sleep routine, or like, do you get good sleep? Do you practice on your sleep? What does that look like?
Yeah, I love sleep. I think sleep is my favorite part of the day as like a busy mom and wife and businesswoman. I think the time that I get to get down and get to bed is awesome. But I do follow a very consistent routine. And you had mentioned it early. Consistency is a big part of things. When we talk about our circadian rhythm is a rhythm. And so it needs to be kept in a sequence of consistency. And so I try to be in bed at the same time every single night. Every now and then you'll have things that will pop up and things that'll make a difference, right? So you might have an event or you might have a commitment. There's something
Right.
that you have to do. But for the most part, I go to bed at the same time every single night and I wake up roughly around the same time every morning. I make sure that I do my oral hygiene. So I brush, I floss, rinse, whatever. And then I also do my nasal hygiene. And then
Mm,
I sleep with a nasal dilator. So I use the mute nasal dilator. And so I'll put that in my nose and I'll get myself in bed at the same time consistently. But my oral hygiene and nasal hygiene always go together. And so every night in bed, same time, make sure that I had done my hygiene routine for my mouth and my nose and go down to bed.
that's awesome. And around what time is your bedtime and your wake up time?
So I'm typically in bed around 10. 10 is my like do not disturb time. It's
Yeah.
I am in bed, don't bother me anymore. And then from there I typically wake up 5:36 a.m.
Okay. So yeah, early to bed, early to rise. And um were you always conscious about this, or did you have an experience to where obviously you know your kids, working with your kids and everything, but for you personally, was there ever a point in your life when you were a little bit younger and you didn't really get good sleep or didn't focus on these things, and now knowing what you know, coming back, you're like, oh, these things kind of make sense?
Yeah, when I was younger, I think I definitely had periods of like insomnia where I would be up all hours of the night. So back then, Nick at Night was a big thing. And so I'd be watching like Dragnet and like the weirdest shows, Dick Van Dyke Show. I'd be watching the weirdest shows as like a 7-year-old in the middle of the night, up from like 1 to 4 in the morning, and then go back to sleep and then wake up for school. Yeah, it's really insane. I don't even know how my parents allowed that to happen, but that was a lot of my childhood of not really getting good sleep and being up in the middle of the night for hours. And so I think that looking back, I wish I knew more. And while I did enjoy watching a lot of those shows, I wish my parents had intervened a bit more and just, set some good boundaries around my sleep and kind of prepared me more for sleep the way that I know now and I help my children now.
Mm, yeah, very well said. And I think I was the same way as a kid. Maybe that's just like I guess as a kid, they would say, oh, kids have so much energy. So I guess maybe they need less sleep. And then now that I'm thinking, is like, maybe they need more sleep
Yeah,
because,
it's always more.
yeah.
They need more. Yeah. And then especially once they get to the teenage years, like preteen, teenage years where everything's happening now, puberty's happening, they're having growth spurts, like all that happens, not puberty in its own sense, but the growth happens during sleep. And that only happens during stage 3 sleep that the human growth hormone is secreted. So if they're not getting good quality sleep and if they're not able to sleep for those lengthy periods of time, so you'll have teenagers who are having insomnia or who can't get to sleep at night, difficulty falling asleep, then they have to wake up super early because a lot of these high schools are very early that the kids have to
Hmm.
be there. Whereas the elementary school students go in a little later. It's totally backwards because those teenagers are missing out on a lot of sleep that they need for these dynamic changes that are happening in their body. So yeah, they definitely need more sleep.
Wow. And that is so true because, yeah, high school started for us. It was like class literally started at like 7:10 a.m. And then I was so envious of the middle school and elementary schools. They get to roll in at 9 o'clock, 9:30 was their start time. But like you mentioned, and it does make sense that that is backwards. Why do they continue? Obviously, you're not in a school or like, you're not in that field, but what is your opinion on why they don't speak to science about this and re-engineer that a little bit, even starting school later, like maybe 9 or 10, and having them stay in school till a little bit later, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock? Is that just because it's so set in the past, like, and they just continue to
I
do
think it's
that?
more about the Yeah, I think it's conditioning that we have just to be more focused on like the adults and the parents and what their responsibilities are. Because if you think about it, more of the parents would be there trying to pick up their children or drop off their children when they're younger. Whereas like some of the high schoolers are getting to school on their own, be it taking a bus or walking or whatever, they're doing that mostly independently. And so if you think about it, like, does the child really need to go in later if they're going to be more independent, where we could have more parents who are working make sure that they get their kids to school before they go off to work, and then get them a little later on in the evening too to pick them up. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. And I guess I'm very naive in a lot of these things because I don't have any kids myself. So it's like I think about these things, but thinking, reframing it from a parent's point of view, that makes total sense. Because if I got to get to work in the morning, but I got to get to my kid, I can't, that just doesn't make sense. So I guess you're right about that.
Right. Yeah.
No, this is very informational. So how did you, out of respect of your time, because I know we only have about an hour, how does all of this, because in my head, you're the expert now. Like you're very knowledgeable, very well informed, and very well spoken. How did you, or how and why did this come into the book that you recently wrote?
Oh, okay. So I think that for me, I really love that there was this big push for sleep when Bill Gates had put forward that book on his favorite list, like Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. And it was
I
wonderful. It
love
really
Dr.
pushed
Matthew
him.
Walker. Sorry to cut you off, but he's
Oh,
brilliant.
he's great. He's
Brilliant.
absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely fabulous. And everything he talks about is so true. He's done amazing research. And I love that everybody was thinking about sleep, but I think that people were thinking about sleep from like a different mindset. Whereas like my big focus is we have to prioritize the way you're breathing, because we could go for days without water. We could go for weeks without food, but none of us can go for any more than a few minutes without oxygen. Like we need to breathe. And so our body is prioritizing our breathing when we're sleeping too. When we're unconscious of it, our body's main job is to make sure we keep breathing. And it's
Mm.
redirecting energy, resources, and so forth into ensuring we keep breathing and we stay alive during the night. If we would focus more energy on that, I think a lot more people would be sleeping better, would be feeling better, would be more productive. And so when I went into writing Accomplished, that was my main goal, is like we need to highlight how important breathing is, because while everybody's focus is sleep, it really needs to be on how we can breathe the best. That way we can get to better sleep naturally without having to work on, saving up for a better mattress or whatever it is the latest tip or trick is. So yeah, I think Accomplished was a labor of love, just trying to get more awareness for everybody that breathing is what we should all be focused on.
That's awesome. Because, like you said, yeah, I think maybe it's because we're Americans and everybody is a marketer these days. Everybody's trying to sell somebody something. So we think in order to improve, I need to buy all of these things. Like you said, mattress, air machine, mouth tape. But really, like a lot of things are coming full circle. It's the holistic. It's just go back to the basics, work on your breathing, just little small things that can go a long way. And in your book, is there like techniques that you go through? Like as they're reading, they can like self-practice these techniques?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I do provide a whole like system and sequence that people can get themselves on. I call it the Care Plan, CARE. It's an acronym, so each part stands for something, but it's an absolute game plan to get you from poor sleep to improved sleep sequentially.
Yeah, that's great. I'm definitely going to have to dive in and read the full book. But enough about sleep. What is because I guess sleep is just so everybody needs to sleep. It's literally everybody in the world literally needs to sleep. And maybe not everybody has the issues with some of these things in the mouth here. My little brother had all of them besides me actually had to go through the braces, which as a kid, I always wanted braces because I always thought they were so cool, like like grills back in the day. I always wanted them. But I guess I'm thankful that I never had to go that direction. Maybe it was because I was just a really good breather or I had good mouth muscles. Does that really affect
Exactly.
like your teeth coming in and everything?
Oh, yes. So that is all of the influence on our skeletal growth is the soft tissue pressures. So I think we don't consciously think about it, but there are pressures that the soft tissues do apply on the bones. And so as we're growing, not using those muscles correctly or having improper pressures or, that's where you'll have a deviation from normal is what I'll call
Mm,
that. A deviation from normal in your skeletal growth. So that does involve the teeth. The teeth are very much a part of the skull and the skeleton. And so, yes, the soft tissue pressures of the tongue within the mouth, and then the cheeks and the lips outside of the mouth, and then even all the cranial pressures of the muscles do impart various tensions on the skeletal system. And so, how we use our muscles does very much impact skeletal growth and the trajectory of that.
wow. Does the food that we eat have an impact on like our tissue and our muscles? Because sometimes I find just you're kind of jogging my memory now. It's like if I'm like eating steak or sometimes you'll chew and you get like this will get kind of sore. Is that like strengthening or
Yeah.
is that actually like damaging your tissues?
So it's strengthening. That's assuming that those muscles aren't overdeveloped, but it is strengthening. We don't chew
Hmm.
enough as a society. A lot of our food is softer now. And when we think about the development, I think a lot of people think that we give babies teethers or teething rings or teething devices to kind of soothe them. What teethers were really intended for is to get them to do more chewing along those gums because it's that pressure or the bone loading, which is really what you're establishing anytime you're chewing, you're loading bone. It's that bone loading that is really creating a lot of stimulus for the teeth to erupt. So we're helping them with eruption, which after all the teeth have erupted, we still have additional bone loading every time we chew that is really helping to deposit bone along the jaw. It really does help with growth as we continue to grow in those stages between birth all the way to roughly 11, 12, or 13 in some, where we're still growing that skeletal bone. So, how we chew or the frequency or infrequency of that definitely does play a role in development as well.
Wow. This is so awesome. Like I am locked in right now. And I owe it to myself to learn about this stuff because growing up as a kid, I think a lot of people too, maybe not just kids, but even adults, they kind of just go through everyday life unconscious about these things. So I guess I'm fortunate enough to have interest in this. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about it today. Um, just to kind of wrap things up, it just came to my mind. You said that your daughter had problems wetting the bed at a like as she was getting older. Me too. I actually did the
Yeah.
same thing. I couldn't stop wetting the bed until maybe I don't know, maybe like 8 or 9, 10ish, which I think is kind of late. But for me, I
Yeah.
vividly remember in my sleep, in my dreams, I was wet in the bed, but in my dream, I was standing at a toilet. I swear to God to you, like I would get up and go to the bathroom
Oh.
only to find out that I was still sleeping in my bed. What kind of,
Oh.
like, what is the bedwetting about?
It's an interesting phenomenon. So when you're dreaming about it, it's kind of like lucid dreaming where you feel like you are in the dream. So you're not really in like that full REM because that full REM would have you in muscle paralysis where you really can't move, where your bladder is shut off, like everything is
Mm,
shut down and shut off. But what happens is that as you are breathing or here's where the science will tell us is what's happening for the bedwetting. As you are breathing during sleep, you're not breathing efficiently enough, or there's not enough oxygen coming in for whatever reason, right? And as that's occurring, that's creating signals in your brain that, okay, we're losing, or I'm sorry, we're gaining too much sodium and we don't have enough potassium and we need to release sodium from the body now. And so the sodium that's going to be released from the body is the urine. And so you wind up releasing the bladder. And it's all unconscious. You don't know that it's happening, but your body is essentially telling you, oh, no, we got to go to the bathroom. So now it's like a lucid dream where you think that that's what's happening. I'm going to the bathroom because you know now I have to go to the bathroom. And it just releases.
Wow. So it's a sodium buildup in your body that your body unconsciously is trying to get rid of.
Yeah. 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 So I know that as a parent, I don't have the same experience on your end of it as a child, but as a parent, you feel like, oh, why is this kid doing this like again and again and again? And so just proactively, I want to apologize to you for whatever reaction your parents gave you in the morning, because you really did think that, you were in the bathroom, but it's not you. It was never you. It was always just a psychological release. And so, don't
Hmm.
hold that as like your issue, like a personal
Yeah,
issue you had.
not at all. And just to touch on a little bit more, I guess, because adults, obviously, many adults, hopefully, don't experience bedwetting these days. Is that just a natural thing as you get older, your body either holds or produces less of the sodium? Or why is it the fact that it's more relevant in like younger people than older people? I guess as you get older, when you get to that certain age, you do start wetting the bed again.
Well, part of that is true. Yes. I think adults don't talk about it as much, but it does actually happen. Like they do have bedwetting in adults. What does happen more so in adults though is that they will actually wake up. So you'll have people who will wake up multiple times a night, sometimes one, two, three times a night to go to the bathroom and then come back and go to bed. And so
Mm.
that would be more of what would happen in an adult. So yes, there are some who definitely do experiencing bedwetting. They just don't talk about it. If you were to talk to a sleep physician, you would hear that there's definitely adults who experience it, but it is something that, they do wake up more frequently. And so there are people who are waking up and going to the bathroom, and that's the issue behind that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that I love asking you these questions because you were literally tackling them and breaking them down in such a professional and easy to understand way. It's really enjoyable, actually. I'm loving this. Where do you see your practice and your knowledge and just the future of myofunctional therapy? Is it at its peak, or is there still more science coming out? Are you still going to continue practicing and learning more about it? Or is it just, is there really more to learn? Are you just scratching the surface?
I think we're all just scratching the surface. There's so much more we can learn about sleep. I mean, even Matthew Walker, the great Matthew Walker,
Yeah.
even he says there's so much we don't know. So I think we are just scratching the surface. I think myofunctional therapy will come leaps and bounds in the next decade to come, where it'll be more of a household thing where we all know and understand chiropractors and what they do. I think we'll get to that point with myofunctional therapists. And I think we'll see more people wanting a root cause because as you've mentioned, the whole holistic movement, it's big. I think there are a lot of people who really do want a root cause solution. They don't want to do just some, okay, this will help me sleep better if I take this medication every single night for the rest of my life, or if I do this thing every single time for the rest of my life. I think a lot of people do want to get to the root of the issue. And I think that's where we will see ourselves in the next decade or so in advancing.
Yeah. Which I hope is the case, especially with all the technology coming out. I guess I hope the people that are practicing this, like yourself, continue to, dig into the nuances of all these little things that people like me just don't unconsciously think about or try to practice. So I guess I'm just naturally, I'm just thankful, like, dang, I'm glad there's people out there like yourself that are not dedicating their lives, but dedicating their time and their resources to understand this and to willing to bring it back to like the masses. Cause if I were to find like, it's kind of like, how do I say it? It's kind of like having a, not a secret weapon, but you kind of have like some secret knowledge and powers that you could easily not share to other people and help other people out and just live your best life.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. But I think we should all help each other in whatever ways we can. So I'm always happy to share.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And thank you for your time. I know we only had to set an hour, but I could literally sit here and talk to you for maybe 2 or 3 more hours. Maybe hopefully in the future we could do this again and see what kind of the new
Yeah.
science or the new techniques that are coming out. Cause like you said, we're probably just scratching the surface. So maybe in 6 months you might learn a new technique or a new thing or that I would love to learn and share to the audience about.
Yeah. I'd be happy to come back. I would love to chat again.
Yeah, that's great. And then just for to plug the book a little bit, where can people find this?
So the book is Accomplished: How to Sleep Better, Eliminate Burnout, and Execute Goals. And you can find it on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. If you just type in Accomplished on Amazon, you're going to get all sorts of things. But if you type in Accomplished Sleep, you'll get the book.
Right. And I like that cover too. That's good. That's awesome. Are you
Thank
gonna
you.
have more books in the future? Or is this was that just like a one-off
I
thing?
think so. I think so. I think I'll wait for inspiration, but I think so. There will definitely be. You'll see another book from me in the future.
Awesome. And then my last thing on the book, because I always hear people that are writing the book and they talk about the audio book portion of it. Have you considered doing that part? I know a lot of people are like, oh, it was brutal. It was a tough thing. But a lot of people do learn either better or easier through the audio version of the book. Have you ever considered that?
I haven't considered like recording it myself. There is an audiobook version of it that's read by an AI bot or
Oh,
something. Amazon
cool.
has a lot of new features. Yeah. So it is available as an audiobook too, where it's read by like some human sounding robot.
Right. Yeah. Because when I hear people doing the audiobook, I'm like, dang, you got to sit there and like not just read, but you kind of have to deliver passionately and worry about the tonality of the book. And I'm just talking to you, like my mouth is already salivating because I start talking too much. Like, dang, I can't even imagine what that process is like.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. All right. I won't hold too much of your time because, again, I could sit here all day long, but out of respect, out of your time, I appreciate you for being here. And I really would like to revisit sometime in the future and see what new science and techniques are out there.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. Thank you so much for having me. You know how to reach me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your time and thank you for providing literally value to our listeners because I think people can really benefit from these things. Like you don't need to do the medicines and the treatments and the surgeries. Just everybody just take a step back, take a deep breath, clean your nose out. I'm trying to just recap, clean your nose, work on your breathing. Maybe you can do just a quick recap for us to optimize your sleep tonight if you're watching this.
Yeah. Make sure that you're being consistent with your time, but you absolutely want to take care of your nasal passages. So use a nasal saline rinse or a nasal irrigation system. Clean out the nose, open it up, whether you use a nasal strip or a nasal cone, like a nasal dilator, and make sure those lips stay closed. So if that's mouth tape
Mm.
or if that's just proactively keeping your lips closed, whatever you've got to do to make sure you get your best night's sleep.
Perfect. And my girl, she does use mouth tape, but I swear to you, she snores right through that thing. So maybe she does. It's the hostage tape. She'll put it on and she'll literally snore right through it.
Oh,
So maybe I'm
wow.
gonna have to get like a stapler or something. I don't know. I'll have to figure something out.
Or myofunctional therapy, one of the two.
Or malfunction therapy. I'll just get her in contact with you and hopefully you can fix her.
Yeah. I
No,
like to tell people
that's
we help
awesome.
to make them even better. So instead of fixing her, I'll just make her a better version of herself.
Right. No, that's great. Okay. We'll wrap it up. Thank you again for being here, and thank you everybody for listening. As much as I love doing these podcasts virtually, I much rather sit down and talk to somebody one-on-one in person. I can look at them, I can feel the energy that they're giving off, and it's just a better vibe. So if you know anybody that would be interested or that would be a good guest for the podcast show, please get us in contact, put us together, or just relay them my information. I would love to sit down and talk to them. And with that, I will continue to do my best to improve my podcasting skills and my interviewing skills to one day bring on bigger guests that you would love to see me collab with.